the ability to be flexible, right? To have that growth mode of like, this doesn't have to be forever like this. And if it's not going to be forever like this, how do I adapt my own acceptance of that, and also my own ability to match where this is going, and always have that mindset of like, what is the future for myself and what is the future for my career, but also what's the future for the current thing that I'm doing.
What's happening, people? Welcome back to another powerful episode of Marketing by Design. I am your host, Andy. I am the founder here at MMG Design, and I am super excited to share today's guest with you all. And her name is Felicia Wagner. Felicia Wagner is one of the main badass ladies over at Portfolio Creative, and she's an expert in all things job placement and job search, specifically for marketers and creatives. In this episode, you're going to learn a ton about how to navigate the job search world in a creative career. I definitely been there before. Felicia and I connected about a year and a half back when I was first transitioning through the layoff before building the company. And I can tell you firsthand, Felicia is a very special person. She will answer all your questions on the job search side. She has talked to creatives all the way up to Fortune 500 companies, all the way down to someone and other creatives who are just navigating the job market, getting in, graduating from school, or doing so without an education. So she's really touched all edges of the spectrum. And in this conversation, we're going to talk a little bit about Felicia's career, her purpose, how she ties everything back to her greater vision of just service and helping other creatives. And it's just a great episode for if you're in this place currently or know someone who is. So definitely be sure to follow along with this one. I hope you guys are enjoying the show. Be sure to check out Felicia Wagner at Portfolio Creative. We'll link to her LinkedIn and website below. Be sure to get in touch with her if you're navigating this field as well. I encourage you to leave a like, comment, review on the show. We've been going for over 2 years now, and we're excited to keep interviewing the best marketers, creatives, and founders here in the Columbus region and nationwide. Thank you to our sponsors over at AMA Columbus for being our presenting partners throughout the duration of the show. And without further ado, please welcome Felicia Wagner. People who have listened to the show for a while, the podcast used to be called, Felicia, I don't know if you know this, used to be called the Creatives Journal Podcast. And I started this back a year and a half ago now, and I did it purely as an excuse to get in touch with more people in the creative industry. And I interviewed a lot of like local agency owners, founders, and it was incredible. It kind of got me into the niche of finding a voice and getting out there, which I think is something that we'll touch base on today. But anyway, right after I went through my first career layoff in February 1st of 2024, I found through my copious hours on LinkedIn a man by the name of Matt Musselman. And the biggest thing I remember from my first interactions with him was, he said, you can call me Matt Musselman, spelled muscle, M-U-S-C-L-E, man. He says, that's my nickname, so you can just call me that. And B, here's my phone number. Let's get on a personal phone call. And even, especially in an industry where there's so much turnover, there's a lot of job uncertainty, stuff like that. That personal touch is something that I've experienced, not just at Portfolio Creative, which we'll be talking about today, but just through everything that, and as creatives together. So that was my first touch point with this show. And since then we've transitioned, the show a little bit to be more expansive towards marketing. And that's a great segue kind of into Felicia, who is one of the heads at Portfolio Creative. And I want to thank you for coming on the show today, Felicia. How are you doing?
Thank you for having me. I am doing great. And I don't think I've ever heard that story before, that Nat was sort of the catalyst to creating this. So that's really awesome. To me, that feels like I hired the right person, and, clearly we have a great team here. So that's so lovely to hear.
Yeah. Like I said, it's very consistent throughout everyone that I've met. But yeah, I want to give you a bit of a platform so tell me about how you kind of got started with Portfolio, what you guys do. The audience, there are a lot of listeners, people that identify as creatives, people that are in the region and, may want to hear about you guys. So tell me about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I have a long and winding road that took me to working for Portfolio Creative, and I can touch on some of the highlights of it because I think it really helps to tell why I work for a company like Portfolio Creative. Um, I got my start in the nonprofit space. I worked for an organization called the Hillel Foundation at Ohio State, and spent a few years working with students, getting them engaged, but really being a safe place for people to come and um, just college students go through a lot, and they were
Mhm.
coming to me with all kinds of things from personal issues to how do I be a better advocate for student groups that I'm involved in, things like that. And so that was really like my first job out of school, and was just a really good way for me to zoom in on where I wanted to go with my career. And I wanted to make sure that whatever I did continued in that sort of service related industry of helping people to find their own paths and help to be a support in that.
I would have paid $500 for this. That was Dan Blessing, founder of Design Shark. Wow, this was awesome and exactly what I needed. There was so much good value in here for sure, and something I can use as a North Star to create a more effective and client facing site moving forwards. Thank you so, so much. That is the value of having another set of eyes on your business, on your website. That's the value of removing yourself, the fish, from the water, aka your business. If you feel like a fish in water and you don't know how your message, your design, your copy is resonating, I encourage you to take me up on this. We are currently doing free homepage breakdowns. It's a great way to get another set of eyes on that online property of yours, optimized with some low-hanging fruit so you can go in and change 2 to 3 things to not feel overwhelmed. That'll be in the first link below. Back to the podcast.
Took a weird turn after that, got my master's in HR at Ohio State. And after that, I actually ended up doing restaurant management for a few years. I worked for North Star Cafe and Fusion, and in those jobs, I also had this really awesome opportunity to develop some of my employees to get creative with what I was doing. And I did that all through the pandemic, which it was kind of interesting because as everybody was starting to work from home and losing their jobs, I was continuing to go into the one place where people were able to go out and actually get a meal that they didn't cook themselves, obviously with a mask on and 6 feet away from me. But we got to be creative in figuring out how we help to serve people in a time when they needed it the most and they needed some comfort. And so Portfolio Creative had always been on my radar. Kristen, who is one of our founders, we used to grab coffee once a year and see if there was any openings. And we just kind of kept missing each other. One time she reached out to me and I had just taken a new job. And, one time I'd reach out to her and they didn't have any openings. And so it just kind of was that back and forth for a few years. And then finally we landed on a time when we were both in the right place to be working together. And I have to say, working for Portfolio Creative has just been that really great culmination of all of my experience of customer service and coaching and emotional support and getting to be creative and getting to be aware of what's going on in the world and using that to my best ability to help other people has just been such a privilege to be in a role where I can kind of do that and somebody pays me to do that. Like, I think the best job is when you wake up every day and you're like, am I like cheating the system here because I'm getting paid to do this thing that I really love to do? But it really is just it's the best. I enjoy doing it. I think you'd asked me like what Portfolio Creative does. And I can dig into that a little bit deeper. So on a very basic level, we're a staffing agency. We help to provide solutions for a lot of our clients who are mostly based here in Central Ohio. We have clients kind of scattered around the country as well, but we mostly serve our immediate community here. And so they come to us looking for really great talent, and I get to spend my days on the recruiting side speaking with awesome people in the creative industry and the marketing industry, getting to know their stories a little bit better, and then helping to match them with opportunities that come available that I think they're a great fit for. And I think what we do really well here is because we're a boutique agency, we get to really dig deep into our conversations with people because we're very much about quality over quantity. We want to make sure that we're sending maybe one or two perfect candidates versus, 10 to 20 maybe candidates. and
Yeah.
and our goal is to get both sides to say yes. So that's really my goal, is to make sure that we're sending people to the right opportunities and making that match.
Yeah, that's awesome. And like especially in, you guys meet people at a very sort of key inflection point, whether it's in their careers and their lives. Because I think back to that touch point with Matt, when you're meeting with someone, they're kind of navigating a lot of stuff internally. And I think you guys are very well positioned to have those deep conversations, and that's your differentiator. And when we talk about sort of the whole, landscape, so like 10,000 foot view, creative jobs, creative tasks, they always kind of get lumped into the marketing careers umbrella just because it is so expansive. What do you guys do as a boutique portfolio agent, placement agency? Like, I think that uniquely branded term. What is the difference between something like that and sort of a bigger scope, more broad, generic, just talent recruitment agency that isn't as niche as you guys?
Yeah, I think we have the ability and the capacity to become experts ourselves in some of those things. Everyone on our team has had some sort of taste of either working in an environment that is creative or has a marketing aspect to it, or having some sort of educational background that's related. I have an undergrad degree in media production, so a lot of the times when I'm talking to people, even though it's like way in my past, I am familiar with a lot of the programs that people are talking about. If I don't know what something is, we have the ability to take the time to educate ourselves, right? Like, I may download something and spend a day, and I'm certainly not going to be as good at it as somebody
Mm-hmm.
who's applying for a role who's an expert at it, but I can at least get an understanding of, like, what is the function of this, who's using it, where, why, how. And so when I'm talking to candidates or clients who need somebody to have this particular skill, I'm coming from a place of educated knowledge on what it is and what they need. So I think that's really an advantage for us, is like we get to be a part of it with them, and we have some personal investment in it that maybe somebody who's recruiting for a lot of different types of roles wouldn't really get the opportunity to do. And a lot of times they're reading a job description and are just trying to find, the match between the resume and the job description. But we can really dive a little bit deeper than the resume. And something that we also do, just to kind of give you a more detailed perspective of how we match candidates with opportunities. We don't just send the resume and the work samples. We send an individual write-up for each of our candidates. So when we send somebody to a role, included with their resume and their samples, we have basically a recommendation letter that we're writing on their behalf based on that storytelling that we got the opportunity to do with them when we do a deep dive phone call. So go a little bit the extra mile. We want to bring our hiring managers' attention to specific reasons why we think they're a great fit. And because we're so knowledgeable of the space, we're able to articulate that in a way that's both resonant with the candidate and the hiring manager.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. It's a big differentiator, and we take it, it's kind of the same philosophy of working with small businesses. Is there's a unique inbuilt advantage, and I love how you guys lean into that and you do it well. So, Felicia, I'm really big on tying outcomes to personality traits. So, where I'm going with this is, if you could put together a persona, a list of attributes, you could build your ideal creative marketer, someone who's just resilient in the workforce and can have all this optionality to either engage someone in their network to get a job and they have more control over. They don't feel like they're at the whims of the industry or technology or all the trends we're seeing change in terms of AI and stuff like that. How would you build that like Lego personality to be based on some of the attributes you see in the highest performers that you talk to?
Yeah, I mean it's tough to really like create one Frankenstein person that's like the ideal candidate for every situation, because
Mm,
part of what we do is also gather information from our clients and our hiring managers of like what ideal looks like for them in their particular environment. And so it's hard to, and I know that that's like a cop out answer, because to say
not
it
at all,
depends, the
no.
answer is
Mm,
is really, not quite what you're looking for. But I do think like individual environments thrive with different types of people, and I think it's okay to be the quiet person, right? It's okay to be the person that doesn't have all of the big ideas yet, because you haven't had the experience to know what a big idea looks like or how to
mm,
present it well. And I think really like the um the common thread that every person has, no matter, what type of personality they have or what background they're coming from, is the ability to be flexible, right? To have that growth mode of like, this doesn't have to be forever like this. And if it's not going to be forever like this, how do I adapt um my own acceptance of that, and also my own ability
mm,
to match where this is going, and always have that mindset of like, what is the future for myself and what is the future for my career, but also what's the future for the current thing that I'm doing. Because I think the folks who stay stagnant in their role, um, it's great. Like, there are definitely certain situations where like people can definitely go into a role and have that same role for the rest of their lives and be really okay with that. And that's awesome. But if you are somebody who wants to grow in your career, having that eye on what can I be doing better in my current situation to help the company, and not just like asking my manager like what should I be doing, but like also
uh-huh,
t- taking a step back and really having that analysis of what's going on in your company, and how you have an impact on that, what your role is in that, and how you can better yourself to support that, has definitely been a common thread that I've seen amongst people. And that doesn't mean that you have to be loud. It doesn't mean that you have to have a charismatic personality. But it does mean that you have to speak up sometimes, and know when you need to speak up and when you need to take a step back. I think it's just as hard for the people who are charismatic and do speak out. I definitely am
uh-huh.
one of those people, and sometimes have to like pull myself back of like, am I letting other people talk? Am I being a part of the success of the team, or am I just thinking about the success for myself? And I think that's also really helpful to know too, of like, how do you fit into the ecosystem of where you are? So I think I
Mm,
went around in a bunch of circles there, but did,
mhm.
did I
No,
answer your question?
absolutely, yeah. And what I hear from that, I think it's leaning into who you already are and not trying to
Yeah.
feel like you have to put on a front in order to appeal to a hiring manager, a recruiter,
Yeah.
whoever could be your next employer or your next business partner, if that's the
That's a
avenue
really
too.
That's a really
Mm,
great point. I think a lot of people do feel like that they need to change themselves to
mhm,
meet the needs of the role. And I will say that the common outcome of that is usually people end up somewhere where they don't actually want to be,
mhm,
because
yep,
they made the round peg fit
mhm,
in square hole, and it just wasn't. It was what they needed in the moment, but it wasn't what they needed for the long term, and that's
yeah.
usually about how long it lasts.
People don't realize sometimes what you put out is what you attract back at you, you know?
Yeah.
And I had this dialogue a lot because when I founded the company last year, it was so much of getting like over indexing on networking, going to events where I felt like I really didn't belong. Like here I was this kid who, especially areas like the Columbus Chamber and places like that where I felt like these companies are way bigger than me, more established, and you get a big sense of imposter syndrome. And I like always was someone who would dress not to that standard And even like the way I talked, the way I like articulated my thoughts, I felt like I was just unprofessional. And that dialogue, I think part of it is knowing, giving yourself the opportunity. It's such a balance, I feel like, because part of it is giving yourself the opportunity to put your best foot forward. So if you go to a job interview, you should dress up. If you go to a public event, you should dress up. If you go to a chamber after hours, you should dress up. But I don't think that extends to changing how you talk or how you address people, um, and being afraid to be yourself. I know it sounds cliche, but you truly will find the right opportunity if you are the authentic version of yourself. And I think where a lot of work comes in is where people can identify what that version of themselves looks like, and what they actually want. Because not a lot of people think about, like, take a cadence to think, okay, what does my ideal working life look like? Does it look like the autonomy of having a business? Does it look like um, and also like the other ongoing priorities? And because you only have so many areas you can kind of bucket allocations to in terms of your energy and where you feel
Right.
the most sense of self-worth. Because some people feel a lot of reward and fulfillment from building a very successful career. Um, and they do that, and it's a much more efficient means to support what their goals are and what's important to them. Some people are more independent and they like the challenge and the struggle of trying to do something on their own. So when you guys kind of have these conversations and these dialogues with people that are kind of at these inflection points, what stance do you take, and what are some of the things you see in people that maybe they are they're more inclined to go more the independent route, like you feel like they could do something on their own, versus this is um tying it back to like an organization or another place that they feel like they would thrive in. What's kind of your thought process when assessing that?
Um, well, first and foremost, it's got to come from the person that's looking for the opportunity, right? And we have these conversations all the time where people are kind of at a crossroads. Maybe they've been working um, with an established company before as an employee, and now they're kind of looking to go out on their own in a freelance capacity. And first and foremost, like, I am not the person that's going to reap the consequences or benefits of somebody
Mhm.
going out on their own and running their own business. So it's not like it's not
This
up
is
to me
not
at the end of the
investment
day.
advice. Yeah, yeah.
Correct.
Mhm.
Yeah. Like I
Mhm.
certainly do not want to give somebody like a black and white, I think you should do this, because it really depends, you know yourself the best, you know your situation the best. Running your own business is hard. Being independent, being an independent contractor is very difficult to do, because you have to know a lot more than just what you're good at as far as like
Mhm.
your creative role and your marketing expertise.
Mhm.
You're running a business, and there's a lot that goes into that that can really screw you over in the end if you're not doing it well. When you get that tax bill at the end of the year and you forgot to put your money away, like that's a huge wake up call. Like,
Mhm.
maybe I shouldn't have done this on my own. So I will say that, not to toot my own horn, but like Portfolio Creative does kind of help in that, in the sense that we are a W-2 employer for a lot of folks who do want to try to like dip their toe into freelance work and see what that's like without all of the hardships of having to manage the business side of things. And so
Mhm.
people are able to sort of test it out when they work with us, which is really, I love that that's something that we offer, because I've seen a lot of people go through that transitional period. Maybe they're kind of holding on to uh, a role with an established company, and they're able to kind of take on some side work with us and test out what that looks like to be freelance and just keep kind of picking things up. So, I mean, I would say like there are pros and cons to both, right? If you're working for an established company, you have to play by their rules, right? Like somebody
Mhm.
is not going to let you come in and tell them how to run their business most of the time. But also, you're coming into a place that hopefully is providing some stability and some maybe long term commitment and growth within their company. And then, going out on your own can be really, really beneficial as well. Like, you get to make your own schedule, you get to make your own rules, and Sometimes that can be a really great way to build a career and build a business. And maybe someday you're the person that's the established company that's that gets to
Mhm.
hire somebody else on. So
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, it really to summarize it, it really comes down to each individual's situation, and I just like to ask more questions and give more answers in those scenarios, because I think sometimes really what people need in that moment is just a coach to help them
Mhm.
get to the answer themselves, and they just didn't know what questions to ask.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And I think that's it's one of the biggest differentiators of, like I said, all the touch points that I've had with you guys. And I think that's a really good place to land the plane, because getting in touch with people, whether or not it's you guys, whether or not it's your past network, whether or not it's people that are even aligned with, where you think you want to go. We're all kind of on this path to self-discovery in terms of not just finding out who we are, but where we could add the most value in a company and building our own thing. Um, and not just in my personal journey, but in the journeys of a lot of others. You guys have played a role in that, significant one. So, where can people find you if they want to get in touch with some of the events, with the organization as a whole? Where would be a good place for them to start?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say the best place to start would be our website, portfoliocreative.com. It has our whole team on there. Any way that you want to reach out to us, whether it's through our job board, if you just want to submit a general resume or inquiry, you can do that through our job board as well. Or you can reach out to anybody on our team. We're all happy to help and set up a conversation. We're also very active on LinkedIn. We do post some of our jobs sometimes on Indeed and other job boards as well. But I think the best way to get in touch with us is really just to reach out and let us, get you onboarded into our system, and then we can kind of carry on conversations as we have opportunities come available.